Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister-in-law stay at my house because I prefer my dogs? She doesn't like them. With the pandemic, she 19 female lost her job and stopped paying rent. And now she was kicked out of her apartment and has nowhere to go. Her parents live in another city and we are her only relatives here. That's why she asked my 24 female, husband 28 male, if she can stay with us until she finds a new job, and we said yes. But then she asked what we were going to do with our dogs. I asked her what she meant, and she said she couldn't stay with us if we weren't sending the dogs somewhere else because she's afraid of them. They are 2 Great Danes and a Greyhound, and they are all very friendly. They've never bit or hurt anyone, and they would never do something like that. I've had a Greyhound for 8 years, and the other 2 for 5 years, and that's why I know they would never do something like that. My husband and I told her that if she wants to stay here, she will have to learn to live with them. That they are really important to us, and that this is also their house and they won't go anywhere. She said that she's scared to death of them, and that she could never live with them because of what happened to her when she was a child. When she was about 5, a Greyhound bit her and left a big scar on her arm, and since then, she hates dogs like mine. So we told her that she can't stay here, and now the whole family's mad at us. My in-laws think that we are being insensitive, and my mother-in-law's angry with me, especially because she says that my sister-in-law is like my sister, and that it's not fair for me to do that to her. And she said that because I've been with my husband since I was 14, and his whole family always treated me as if I was another member of their family. But honestly, that doesn't even matter to me. My dogs are like my kids, and I love them as much as I love her, and I'm not going to change my mind. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The dogs are your kids. That person is an adult, and she can go stay with another family member if they think life's so bad for her. She is not your responsibility. The dogs are. This. She should go home to her parents. She needs to learn compromise or life is going to be very hard. To be fair, a deep-rooted fear from the attack as a child is enough to understand a sister-in-law not compromising. On the other hand, she knows the dogs are there and should have never asked them to get rid of them and found another option. Sister-in-law is an a-hole. Start a group chat with all the in-laws. Sister-in-law is about to be homeless. Why haven't you all pitched in to pay for an apartment and expenses for her? You are abandoning her. She's helpless, deserves this, etc. You know, hubby and I would love to contribute, but because our dogs are so expensive, we can't. Then laugh out loud. Laugh out loud even more. Not the a-hole. This is my favorite response. Perfect amount of evil. Not the a-hole. Her fear is understandable, but her request to get rid of the dogs is unreasonable. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister live with me because I don't like dogs? So, I'm now 27 and I have my own house, and would say I'm fairly well-to-do. My sister managed to get caught up in some MLM pyramid scheme and is in debt and without a job. My sister has 2 dogs, a shepherd and an Akita. I don't like dogs, and never will. It's just my problem. Now, my sister wants to move in with me so she can start looking for a job and save money in rent. I told her she would not be allowed because I did not want her dogs. She told me how well-trained they were and that this was an emotional support animal. I hate how people can say the dog is an emotional support animal, and you're now expected to let the dog come in with you. It's literally no different from a dog you picked up on the street and became an owner, because that's what an emotional support animal is, a pet. I told her no, and she called me heartless, and that I could put the dog in one room. This would not work because my sister would need to walk and groom the dog, which would eventually let it go all over my house, and keeping it in a confined place is cruel. She called me an a-hole for letting her suffer. Am I the a-hole? Edit about emotional support animal. I think the concept is good and there are some people who really need them, but so many people abuse the system so they can take their dogs anywhere. Most people I know with dogs will pull out a doctor's note and bam, emotional support animal. You can do whatever the hell you want. Some people even buy emotional support animal vets off Amazon if they want to go the extra mile. Not the a-hole. People on here really pretending that the fake emotional support animal industry isn't a thriving one. It is freaking massive. Literally every person with a dog tells me 1, it is an emotional support animal, or 2, it's a rescue. Like you really got a puppy purebred golden retriever from a rescue. A local lady made a massive fuss over a bookshop not letting her re-essay dog in. One, dog is a Chihuahua. 2, it had a history of pooping in the shop and nipping at people and growling at them. Owner had enough, and woman made a massive outcry, even staring the local fish wrapper. Everyone laughed at it. Okay, let's put aside the whole ESA thing because that's not really what's at issue here. What's at issue is that, as much as you support your sister, you don't like dogs. And if she moves in with you, she'll be bringing 2 extremely big, hairy dogs. I'm a massive dog lover, and because I'm a massive dog lover, I'm going to tell you that she's an idiot. There is no way that you can safely or healthily keep an Akita in one room or a shepherd. I'm assuming that you mean some kind of German shepherd. It would be cruel if not dangerous. It's just not a suitable environment for the dogs, especially dogs of those breeds. Not Dayhall. Not Dayhall even as a dog owner. They shed hair, and even the best trained, well-groomed ones introduce a smell. You would also have to live with things in your space you hate. Neither you or the dogs need that. Next story. I'm at A-Hall for being honest with my sister that I would not become a stepmother again if I knew how it would be. This might sound and look bad from the title alone, so I'm prepared for the sub's decision. My younger sister, 26 female, is dating a man who has 2 kids with an ex. I, 46 female, have been with my husband for more than 17 years. When we met, he was a divorced dad of 3. My stepkids are now adults. My husband is a grandfather. I can honestly say it has not been easy, and I don't think it was the perfect role for me. I love my family, so I wouldn't walk away from them now. But I also know there has been more heartbreak in our family lifetime than there has been heartwarming. I say this even with 2 wonderful children out of it, and a happy marriage outside of it. I was always the outsider, never really considered family by my stepkids. I'm not grandma, while my husband is grandpa. And even though there is no tension or fighting, just indifference, I'm not the kind of person who can't have their heart break a little more, realizing even after all these years, they could walk away from me easily. And while they're not awful to my bios, they definitely don't include them as siblings the way they do each other. It's tough. I don't think I was the best suited for that side of this. So anyway, my sister and I always promised each other honesty. I'm so much older than her, and I tried to baby her a bit too much when she was a lot younger, which she hated. So when she asked me did I have any regrets and would I do it again, I was honest. And when she asked me if I thought she would be able for it, I was also honest. That I don't think she is, because she's even more sensitive than I am, and she's already going in with expectations that might not be met. Now she's mad, and said I was an a-hole and I should have lied. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. She asked for your honest opinion and you obliged. Yeah, don't lie about this stuff if it involves kids. Not the a-hole. Never ask questions if you aren't willing to hear the answers. Sister asks Opie about her honest opinion. Opie gives honest opinion that sister is too sensitive. Sister gets mad because she doesn't think she's too sensitive. Not a-hole. If you had lied, she would have come to you later and been angry that you didn't tell her the truth. I suspect that your sister may already be discovering that being a step-parent is really hard and is taking out her frustrations on you. Not a-hole. Being a step-parent is extremely hard. Truly, no one can understand what it entails and how taxing it is unless they have lived it themselves. You were right to answer her question with honesty. It doesn't mean she will seize her current relationship. People often need to learn things through their own experiences. From one stepmom to another. I feel you. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister have the bigger room? Bit of backstory. My sister, 22, and her boyfriend live at home with our parents while they save for a mortgage. I, 27, live with my husband, 32, and our 2 children. Female 4-year-old and male 21 months old. My parents and my husband and I decided that we wanted to rent a larger house together so we could both save and so they can offer more assistance with childcare as I am starting uni in September. We would split bills proportionally to current living costs and to allow us to save the same amount. My parents would pay £1,500 and my husband and I would pay £800 to £900. My sister and her boyfriend would be moving along with my parents while they save. They currently and would continue to pay my parents £100 per month each. She works full-time as a nurse and he works part-time in retail. The long-term goal is to jointly buy a house with my parents, so my dad is able to retire comfortably and we all have lower living costs. So far, every property we have looked at, my sister has demanded the bigger bedroom, excluding the master, that would be my parents' room, using the excuse of either the smaller room being closer to the kids. Not the case, and when it was, I agree the smaller room would be better located for my husband and I, and that she spends more time in her room than I do, and she wants the space to fit a vanity. I have not sat quietly and agreed with this, and argued my point of it being my long-term home that I share with our parents, and she will only be there temporarily. It is only coming as she is still living at home. When I have raised this as an issue, my mom got upset with me and said she isn't getting involved, and we will just call the whole arrangement off. Bottom line is that, since we lost my grandparents 5 years ago, my mom has treated my sister with kid gloves and basically let her have her own way on everything, as she can be very combative and stubborn. I want to know, am I the a-hole for not letting my sister have what she wants, then switching rooms once she has moved out, or should I stick to my guns? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but by the sound of things, I wouldn't buy a house with your parents until your sister isn't living with them. She's very cheeky for someone who is barely paying for anything. The very definition of a choosy beggar. If your mom won't have your back, wait and buy later, or just don't buy with them. I personally would not buy property with the parents regardless if they were able to convince their daughter to live away from home. I say this because what happens when the parents pass away, I'm sure both Opie and her sister would jointly inherit the property. Opie will have to deal with the sister, and it does not sound like it would be amicable. Not the a-hole. It sounds like your sister knows she has good thing going and wants to keep it. She doesn't plan to move out anytime soon. I'd be advising that if they, your sister and her partner, do move with you, that they have X amount of time to save and leave, or that they pay the appropriate amount to live there. If you have the type of relationship with your parents where you can have an honest talk, I suggest sitting them down and discussing the options. If you don't have the type of relationship where you can have an honest talk, don't buy a house with them. We own, and share, a multifamily with my mother, and it only works because we have clear expectations, and we each have our own separate living space. Even still, it was an adjustment at first. Not the a-hole. Stick to your guns. You're investing in this house, not her. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying I want to spend time with my mom, not babysit? I, 21 female, live in a different state to my mom and stepdad. I went to stay with them for a few days a couple of weeks ago. I was there to spend time with my mom because it had been a long while, and honestly, I miss her. Talking over the phone just isn't the same. She ended up needing to fill in on a couple of late shifts, so some of the nights we had plans I was just hanging out. My stepdad's daughter, stepsister technically since we lived together for 7 years of my childhood, has kids and dropped them off with my stepdad. He then decided he wanted to go out and asked me to babysit. I said no. He told me it would be a great chance to get to know my nieces. I told him I was there to spend time with my mom, not babysit. He got pissed. But I had never met those girls before. I had not seen his daughter in years. She really had some issues with her dad marrying my mom, and I was her easiest target as a kid younger than her, and she basically decided I wasn't welcome in her life. They did not have any idea who I was. He introduced me as their aunt, and they told him their mom said they had no aunt or grandma, just him. So that to me was a very good reason for my no should be respected. But he pushed, and he told me I was rude saying I wasn't there to babysit, etc. My mom told me I did nothing wrong, and it was inappropriate to ask that of me when he knows even she is not allowed to watch the kids or be in the house with them without him. Per his daughter, so crap hit the fan between them. But my aunt, my mom's sister, told me I could have been less of an a-hole and this might have blown over. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He was trying to shirk responsibility and got caught. Now they are gaslighting you. You're dead right about him. That's exactly what he was doing. Not the a-hole. If you aren't trusted enough to meet them properly, then they aren't your responsibility to watch them. Stepdad sounds like he's guilt-tripping. I doubt she knew I was going to be there, honestly. Sounds like his daughter would have went ape if I had agreed. Not the a-hole. He was wrong. I'm glad that your mom backed you up. My aunt, my mom's sister, Told me I could have been less of an a-hole and this might have blown over. Yeah, right. If by blown over, she means giant crap show of apocalyptic proportions. As soon as their mother found out that Opie, who according to her doesn't actually exist, watched her kids, she would lose her mind. She doesn't even let Opie's mother watch them without their grandfather being present. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my father into my flat so he slept in his car? I haven't had contact with him since my early childhood. After the separation of my parents, he had a right to see me every second weekend, but he often forgot me or brought me back early because he had other plans, other women, alcohol. After a while, a court ruled in my mother's favor because she couldn't see me being sad and feeling rejected 2 times a month, and we didn't have any contact since then. His drinking problem was also a reason for the court. I moved really far away from home to study. Last week, my father knocked on my door. I have contact with some of his sisters, my aunts, and wrote them cards so he got my address from them. When I opened, I felt so shocked, sad, and angry. He wanted to talk to me, and he pushed himself into my flat. I told him that I don't want him here, and that I don't want to talk to him right now. My boyfriend came from our living room, and he saw how stressed I felt. He told my father to leave our flat because he was not invited. I said to him that he should write me a letter if he has something to say, and I will read it. He said that he drove all the way to my flat. It's 7 hours from my hometown, and because of the pandemic, he can't stay at a hotel. I said that he should have thought about it before not expecting to sleep by me. I closed the door. He kept yelling and ringing, but I didn't answer or open the door. My aunts called me angrily 2 days after because he had to sleep in his car. They called me an a-hole for not allowing him in my flat and that I didn't talk to him. I'm not sure if I'm an a-hole. As a child, everything I ever wanted was a caring dad. But as an adult, I learned very painful to give that dream up and be happy without a father. It was too much seeing him without any warning. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Him blowing up and hammering on your door is all I needed to know for that judgment. I would not want some aggressive bloke I don't know stay in my house, even if I did own some of his jeans. It's also ridiculous to drive 7 hours to see someone without calling/writing first, especially because of the COVID. Even if you are good friends with a person, it's common decency not to foist yourself on someone else. He needs to grow up. This, not a a-hole. He is literally a stranger. A strange man who is aggressive and pushed his way uninvited into your home. And you're supposed to let him sleep in it while you're sleeping and vulnerable? Hell no, you're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You don't owe him anything. He clearly knew you didn't want to see him, or he'd have given you warning he was coming. Exactly what I was thinking. If he really wanted to talk to you and meant things, he would have contacted you before appearing on your doorstep unannounced, Opie. That basically tells me that he didn't have good intentions, and the way he reacted to you not allowing him in your flat just cements that. I don't know what he wanted, but I'm pretty sure he didn't have your best interest at heart. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. No one could just show up out of nowhere and expect to sleep in your place. Also, why didn't he contact you? Seems like he wanted something from you. I'm glad your boyfriend was there to help you and you stood strong. Good luck, and don't let people get to you and try to guilt trip you. There's COVID, I can't sleep in a hotel. Yet drives 7 hours cross country at the drop of a hat. He definitely had some ulterior motive. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not asking my dad to let my stepsister stay for a few nights? I, 15 female, have divorced parents. My mom is remarried and her husband has a daughter the same age as me, and we've been a step family since we were both 7, but we have also never been close. Not even a little. The only time she ever wants me is when she wants some of my stuff, and I don't really want her for anything. So even though we both live in the same house sometimes, she lives with her dad and mom while I split time between my parents. We're not really in each other's lives, unless she wants something. Anyway, my mom and her husband were traveling out of state last month for a few days to see his best friend who was terminally ill. They didn't want to take my stepsister with because she was getting some in-person tutoring as well as distance schooling, and so they wanted my dad to take her for the few days. My mom asked me to ask him, and I told her no. This pissed her off, and when she asked him, he told her no as well. She asked me again and again, so I told her I wouldn't ask and why I wouldn't ask. My mom lectured me about the importance of family and stuff, And then she ended up getting a friend of hers to take her in for the few days. But she and her husband were super pissed because then they of course had to pay. Which I think sucks, that they expect my dad to take in some strange teenager for nothing and open his house to a random tutor during COVID. But you know, it's still an issue. And my mom told me whatever issues we have, we're family. I told her she, stepsister, and I do not like each other, nor care about each other. And that does not make a family. And that trying to force the issue or pretend things are different are not going to change anything. My mom said one day I might need her. And I told my mom I have so many people I would turn to. And that even if I didn't have them, I do not see myself ever looking to stepsister for anything. She then goes off that it's a horrible thing to say. And I was a selfish brat for not asking my dad to take her when things are already so uncertain with COVID and her dad's friend dying. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and kudos on being able to express that so clearly to your mom. And why can't a 15-year-old stay home alone for a few days? Not the a-hole at all. Your stepfather and stepsister were your mother's choice, not yours, and most definitely not your father's. You and your stepsister are not close and never have been. Your mother expecting you to play a happy family because it makes your life easier is ridiculous. It was wildly inappropriate and entitled for her to involve your father, who has no responsibility for your stepsister. From where does she get the balls you insist that you ask your father for this ridiculous favor and try to make it seem like you're in the wrong? Did she really think that her ex would open his home to her stepchild and do so without payment? Your mother is dead wrong here. Apparently, she has this idea that because her stepdaughter and I are sisters, that my dad should do his best to be open and involved in her life too. Which is so damn weird to me. But hey ho, maybe my dad should be paying support for her or something in my mom's mind. There was a similar issue on my 10th birthday because my dad had me that weekend that day, and he was taking me and my two best friends out, and my mom wanted him to take her too, and pay for her. That is ridiculous. Your father has nothing to do with her new family, and she needs to stop trying to make her ex responsible for her stepdaughter. She also needs to stop putting you in the middle and stop trying to force a relationship between you and your stepsister. Good luck. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my adult cousin that his biological father was a sperm donor when his parents would not? My cousin, Pete, is 10 years younger than me and is my stepdad's brother's son. He moved to college in the same city in which I was living. Pete received a full scholarship to an Ivy League school and was the first in his immediate family to go to college. But he had liberal politics and studied evolutionary biology, which was threatening to the conservative evangelical Christians who raised him. He received no financial support from them and argued with them or did speak to them for months. At the end of his first year, Pete asked to stay with me and my husband during the summer while Pete worked. He stayed that summer, and the next two too. We became very close. At the start of his junior year, Pete needed more money and became a sperm donor. He called his parents asking for family medical history. He told them why he was asking. They were unhappy, but did not dissuade him. During the next year, Pete had bad fights with his father. Pete's father asked him for money. Pete's parents gave their own savings to the church. My stepdad thought that Pete's dad had diagnosed manic depression. His wife, Pete's mother, was passive and did not intervene in how her husband treated their son. I did not know Pete's parents well. Interactions I had with them were restrained because of his father's open judgments on others. Pete was increasingly distraught about his family. Connection with his father was always hard. He is intelligent, well-read, well-traveled, multilingual, and open-minded. His father is not. Pete told me that he was ready to stop talking with his father. At the end of the third summer when he lived with us, he came back upset from his annual short trip back home. His father was so mad about Pete's application to an evolutionary biology PhD program that he had thrown a Bible. In the year prior, my stepdad told me that Pete was donor conceived. Only a few in the family knew, and his parents didn't want him to know. My stepdad's brother had an irreversible vasectomy after an earlier marriage. His mom wanted a child, so they used a sperm donor, and Pete is his mom's only child. I told him, and he was elated. When he called his parents, they denied it before admitting it. His parents were very angry with me for telling him, but I believed that Pete should know true familial medical history. I also believed that this information might explain his emotional distance from his father in a way that could be healing. Pete was grateful that I told him, but his parents hate me for it. He found his donor's family through genetic testing, and he has formed a close bond with his biological family. The shared interests and attitudes between Pete and his paternal biological family are much greater than those between Pete and the family of the man who raised him. Now for the comments. I say not at all, especially in light of his parents' antagonistic attitude towards his education and the possibility of mental instability. A normal person would be concerned about the possibility of having a genetic mental illness and want to be aware of the possibility of inheriting it. You've given your cousin peace of mind regarding mental health/medical history, and he has a right to know, in my opinion. The relationship is not the reason Pete needs to know. Medical history is. Everyone has an absolute right to know their medical history as much as possible. Not a-hole. It wasn't exactly your place to tell him, but given the circumstances, I don't feel like it is appropriate to call you an a-hole. His parents are horrible, especially for not telling him his medical history, so I think you get a pass because of that. I also feel your justifications for their strained relationships don't really line up. The parents are just a-holes. Not a-hole. I'm donor-conceived and was lied to about it. If you had continued to lie, you would have been a party to it. He would have found out eventually, by his blood test, seeing an eye color chart, doing a DNA test for fun, etc. Not to mention the fact that so many people knew and were lying to him. Good for you for not being a party to that. I'm donor-conceived too. It's so rare to find another one of us in the wild. Added to add, I've always known too. My mom was a single mother, so the who's my dad questions came very early for me. For the last story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my husband, then leaving him at the clinic after his prank? Me, female 28, and my husband, male 34, have been married for a year. Before I met him, I got a dog named Ollie, a German Shepherd, that was originally my sister's, but she passed away, and I immediately took him to live with me. My husband adores Ollie, and he sometimes jokes that he's married to me only because of Ollie. He likes making jokes and doing pranks, but some of them are downright nasty. He'd always get me worried by lying saying Ollie ran off when he was hiding him in a place I didn't know about. He knows how much worried and stressed out those pranks make me, but he says my reaction is priceless and worth the yelling/lashing afterwards. Ollie needed to be taken to the veterinary clinic for a checkup. My husband said he'd handled it. During the second visit to get the results, I received a call from my husband, and his voice sounded like he wasn't okay. I asked what was wrong. I got really worried after he said it was about Ollie. I was starting to shake. I kept asking what was going on, and he told me that Ollie's been diagnosed with cancer. He said he wanted me to come over to the clinic as soon as possible because Ollie was with the vet. I couldn't stand. I started asking, is that why Ollie lost weight lately and such? I rushed to the clinic and found my husband standing near the entrance with Ollie. First thing I noticed was him laughing hysterically, telling me that I really bought into his lie. I was confused, so he said it was just a prank. Ollie's perfectly healthy and handed me the results to check. After I checked, I lost it. I lashed out at him. Not gonna lie, I called him awful names, and his face suddenly turned red like he didn't expect me to react that way. He argued that I made it a big deal, obviously, and was being mean to him over a prank that didn't even last an hour. I kept lashing out and didn't give him a chance to keep talking. Then I took Ollie and the keys and left. I arrived to the clinic in a taxi. I left him at the clinic while me and Ollie went home by car. 3 hours later, he came back and was upset. He usually laughs even in serious situations, but this time it didn't. He argued that I shouldn't have left him like that, and that I overreacted. Said I was trying to make good memories to look back on and laugh at, but I was unnecessarily overreacting. He stopped talking after that. Just wanted to mention that this started months after his father's passing. His family said he never mentions his dad, nor keep anything of his, although they were very close. I never met his father, but they told me he wasn't suffering from anything, and his death was sudden, and my husband had a hard time processing it. This could be the reason for his behavior. Not a-hole. This isn't a prank. This is abuse. He wanted you to feel like your beloved dog was dying. For his amusement. He laughed at your pain. Even him hiding the dog and saying he ran away is unbelievably cruel. His words aside, I think he's jealous of Ollie. Forget leaving him at the clinic. You should consider leaving his lying, cruel butt entirely. Yes, you're right. I don't know why he keeps joking about serious stuff like that. He once lied to his friend group about their friend dying overseas. Half of the group isn't talking to him anymore because he lied about their close friend's death. It scared them, and it was highly inappropriate, but he kept trying to justify that it was a prank. I don't know why he thinks any of this is okay. I've already warned him and told him to not get all involved in his pranks, but it took me to lose my temper to get him to realize that what he's doing was unacceptable. Wow, that's so incredibly out of line, unimaginably cruel, and legitimately disgusting. He said someone died. Why does he do it? Some people have personal issues that manifest as self-destructive tendencies. That's the most generous read on this situation. The other is that he's a sociopath, utterly lacking in empathy and enjoys causing distress. Either way, the why doesn't matter. He doesn't care about his why. He's having fun and enjoying himself, causing deep heartbreak and trauma to people. What will it take for you to have enough? Will it take him calling your parents and telling them you died as a prank for the memories? Or maybe he will just tell them that you have cancer. He has a pattern of destructive behavior. It doesn't even sound like he recognizes that much, let alone be willing to change. I'm seriously concerned for you and Ollie. He literally sounds like a monster. The dog you adore ran away. Kidding. Haha. No, I actually took it to the vet, and the vet says it has cancer. Not really. Christ, what a nahal. Say this. Sweetie, I apologize for overreacting. I love you. Kidding. Get the hell out. Not nahal. Opie should have told him leaving him at the vet was a prank and he was overreacting. Jesus freaking Christ. I hate people like Opie's husband. Is he 12? Wait, that's offensive to 12 years old. Opie, I'm not issuing any judgments because I'm concerned. Your husband sounds like he's escalating. I would get the dog out of the house if possible. Good memories? That makes my skin crawl. Remember the time you thought your beloved pet was dying? Haha, good times. Am I the a-hole for not acknowledging I have a sister? 9 years ago, we found out that my 28 female mother had a 5-year affair with someone she met from work. My parents divorced and she went on to get remarried to the man, Greg. My mother moved her husband and his daughter, Kylie, 26 female, from his previous marriage into our house, and I lived with them before I left for college. I remained in minimal contact with them until Kylie joined my company and started working in my department. Nobody was aware of our relation since we had different last names, and I had told Kylie not to disclose anything about this. Last Friday, while clocking into work with a few of my co-workers, Kylie came up to me to ask if I could come home for a family dinner. By lunch, our entire department was gossiping about it, and Kylie would confirm their suspicions. Fed up, I told the department that I do not have a sister. Things died down at work, and I agreed to make it to dinner considering it was my mother's birthday. At dinner, I was bombarded with questions about why I refused to acknowledge my sister at work and refused to even call her my sister. Greg told me I was a petty boy for embarrassing Kylie at work and that he has had enough of me mistreating his daughter. He told my mother that my misbehavior was a result of my parents cuddling. He demanded that I address him as my father and Kylie as my sister and to tell everyone at work that too. At that point, I had enough of his relentless chastising, so I told him that all he signed was a marriage certificate and not adoption papers, so I am not his daughter, therefore will not be addressing him as my father. I brought up the fact that I know my dad had created an account for my college fund and paid child support each month, but they used the funds to purchase a new car and to pay off credit card debt. Back then, they told me that I would have to get a part-time job to help with paying off college, because money was tight since they just got a new car. I always found it weird that Kylie never had to get a job to go to college and could afford to stay in a nice apartment during. Kylie was crying by the end of the argument. My mother broke down and yelled at me to stop, while Greg called me an ungrateful witch. I told them that if they only have the capacity to acknowledge and care for one daughter, then do not expect me to be in Kylie's life as her big sister, and left the house. I guess Kylie posted about it in social media because friends and family called me up. Some told me I was being harsh and unfair to Greg and my mother who took care of me, as well as Kylie who had nothing to do with this, while some understood where I was coming from. So, am I the a-hole for doing this? Now for the top comments. They stole your money. Sue the hell out of your cheating mother. To be honest, I'd stop calling her mother. Cheaters don't deserve any better. Yeah, if she was 19 and received money from her father that the mother and stepfather stole, then that's theft. Why did the dad not just give it directly to the daughter though? Opie might have been living with her mom during that time. I think some places require you to pay child support not until the child is 18, but independent. I guess Kylie posted about it on social media. This is where I have a problem with Kylie. I was a bit miffed that she alluded towards a relationship at work when you had previously told her not to, but now she has turned a private argument into a sympathy farming session. I don't like how she's playing this. Not today, Hull. You seem to have handled yourself really well with Greg. Blended families are complicated. It doesn't help that step-parents sometimes want to overstep. Yeah, I wonder why as well. Like, she asked Opie in front of all colleagues when clearly nobody knew about the relationship, and then informed the parents about this and then again on internet. Feels to me like she's manipulating to get sympathy. But the worst is the mom. Clearly sacrificed her own daughter over husband and stepdaughter. She is the a-hole. Thank you for the overwhelming response. I'm still in the middle of reading all your responses, but there seem to be parts that are confusing, and I couldn't elaborate due to the character limit, so I thought I'd clear things up here. Where I'm from, a lot of people live with their parents when they're in college, but I lived with them for a couple of months before college. Child support is mandated until 18, but my dad wanted to make sure I'm well taken care of, so he continued until I was independent at 21. My dad left me 2/3 of my tuition fee, and it was decided that my mother would pay the other 1/3. Unfortunately, child support in my country isn't heavily regulated, so people could get away with not paying, and people can also get away with misusing the funds. In my case, my dad deposited the money in a joint bank account that had both my mother's and my name on it. She can move funds in and out of that account without needing my permission. Conversely, I could too if I knew about it. And where I'm from, it's really common for parents to have joint accounts with their children, so it makes sense why she got away with that. My dad moved out of state and eventually out of the country, but we're still in close contact with one another. I didn't tell him about the job or having to pay for college myself because I didn't want him to worry. I also didn't find out about the college fund until finding the bank book and statements in the safe right before moving out. At that point, I just decided to cut contact and get out of there because there was already no point in arguing. About Kylie, my boss and HR know that Kylie is my stepsister, but that information is kept private and confidential. Our workplace has the tendency to gossip, and Kylie refers to me as her sister around family and friends. I ask if we can maintain our relationship at work strictly professional, which means not referring to me as her sister because I didn't want our co-workers to think that she got into our company because of our relations. She agreed. As for her social media post, she posted a solemn picture on Instagram and captioned, "Tonight is the most terrible night of her life because her family was breaking apart." When prompted in the comments, she elaborated on how I blew up at them and said I would be cutting ties. While I understand that Kylie is innocent and that I shouldn't extend my resentment from my mother and Greg towards her, so I treat her like a co-worker, but I can't bring myself to see her as my family or a friend, and I'm finding it even harder to do so after her social media post. Sorry for a super long comment, and I hope this clears a few things up. If there's anything else that's confusing, I would be glad to elaborate. Kylie isn't so innocent. I'm willing to bet that she didn't include why you blew up at them or why you wanted to cut ties. She's old enough to know what her father and mother did. She's making you look bad in order to get sympathy and attention. You did nothing wrong, but they did, including Kylie. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I ask my ex to stop having our daughter call his new girlfriend Mom? So my ex-husband and I got a divorce several years ago. I got remarried in January 2021, and he started dating someone that same month. My ex-husband knocked up his fairly new girlfriend, and our daughter 8 is starting to show resentment towards them. When I got remarried, my daughter started calling my husband Daddy. It was completely unprompted. I asked her about it, and she said that she felt like he was her daddy, and that's what she wanted to do. My ex-husband freaked the hell out and ended up screaming at her. She told me about it happening when I picked her up and she was crying. I talked to my ex and he apologized to me, but never to her. I now have my daughter in therapy because of multiple things he has been saying to her, which the therapist told me not to inform him that she's going. Now, I really worry about my daughter's mental health. My daughter told me today that her father has been telling her to call his new girlfriend Mom, since she's going to be giving birth to a new sibling. My daughter is already upset about the new baby and doesn't want anything to do with it. I have no idea what to do. My husband has been in my daughter's life for multiple years, and no one told her to call him daddy. This new girlfriend has only known my daughter for a few months, and her father is pushing her to call his girlfriend mom. Would I be the a-hole if I asked my ex to stop, or if I talked with a girlfriend? Note: just for clarification, I would have no issue with my daughter calling her father's new wife mom if that was something my daughter felt was right. But her father is the one insisting, and this is a woman my daughter has only seen a total of 10 times. I personally call my own stepdad and stepmom dad and mom. My daughter doesn't not like the new girlfriend, but she's admitted that she doesn't feel comfortable with her as well. Not today, Hall, but talk to the therapist about how to handle this. The way her father treats her is horrible. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. According to Opie, the therapist doesn't even want Opie to inform Dad that daughter is in therapy. Yeah, I'm a bit suspicious of that statement. And if it is true, I'd suggest Opie find a new therapist. Any therapist who encourages dishonesty over finding healthier ways to communicate is not very good. Sorry, I wasn't very clear. The therapist doesn't want her father to know just yet, due to the nature of the therapy and that he's been emotionally/mentally abusive. He will be brought into the sessions at some point, but the therapist wants to wait until she knows it's safe for my daughter. Not Day-Hall. Explain to your daughter she can call the parental figures in her life what she wants, and feel no guilt. He doesn't want your daughter calling her stepdad daddy, but wants his daughter to call her stepmother mommy? No, ma'am. He's trying to have the best of both worlds. Update. Holy cow, I didn't expect to get so many responses, and I have been reading through as many as I can. I see a lot of people mentioning lawyers. I have a lawyer, and he is aware of everything. He said that currently there is nothing I can do because there hasn't been physical harm, but we are noting everything. He also said when there's enough evidence from the therapist, we can petition the court for supervised visitation until he receives therapy/anger management and is cleared to see her on his own, but it would be virtually impossible to take away all of his rights to her without evidence of physical mistreatment. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my former stepmother and stepsister to my wedding? My parents divorced when I was 3. Dad remarried when I was 9, and he died when I was 19. After his death, his wife's stepdaughter and I didn't really keep in touch with each other. That was more my choice than theirs. I was never particularly close to them, and had spent more time with my mom than my dad while they were married, because of the distance he lived from us. And when he was gone, I didn't see a point in staying in touch. My grandparents continued to keep in touch with them though, and even told them when I got engaged, and then when I sent invites out last week. After, they got upset about not being invited, both them, and my grandparents started giving me crap for it. My grandparents gave my former stepsister my number and she gave it to her mom. I heard everything from they're still family to it's a slap in the face when people ask why they aren't there. After 7 years of no contact, I wasn't expecting this. My grandparents expressed real disappointment in me though, which is why I came here. With everyone pissed at me and thinking of me as the a-hole, I had to ask. So tell me, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Relationships are two-way streets, with both sides needing to make an effort. If either side wants to participate in the fun events like weddings, graduation parties, and baby showers, then they need to put in the work of weekly/monthly communication to have that expectation. This. I have an older stepbrother who I have had 3 conversations within 16 years. I still consider him family, but just distant. If you want to be close, got to meet at least part way. Not the a-hole. It's your wedding. You and your partner choose the guests based on their significance in your lives. Not the a-hole. Why is your grandma creating drama for you when you're getting ready to get married? That's just rotten of her. If you don't consider the stepmother and stepsister to be family because you never developed a bond with them and didn't see them much while your dad was alive, your feelings and reactions are totally understandable. Is your grandma bored, lonely, and miserable without much to do besides creating drama where she can find it? Why on earth is she handing out your number to people without asking you first? Sorry to tell you this, Opie, but your grandma is the huge a-hole in this situation. I figure this must be your dad's mom, so she considers your stepmom to be her daughter-in-law and thus her family. Still no reason to try and force that BS onto you. Sorry you're dealing with that. It's not just my grandma, but both my grandparents on my dad's side. Tell them your ex-stepmother and stepsister are not your family. You had little to do with them when your dad was alive, and you've had no relationship with them since he died. Tell them to stop talking about you to them, that they're only creating unnecessary drama by doing so. And if they don't, you'll have to limit contact with them. Tell them you're blocking your ex-stepmother and stepsister, and you will not discuss it further. Your ex-stepmother and stepsister are literally strangers to you. They aren't even distant extended family who you see a few times a year. You don't have to spend money in entertaining them for appearances. People, other than your grandparents, will think nothing of them not being there, as they haven't been part of your life for over 7 years. Shut your grandparents down, and then refuse to discuss it further. And don't waste mental energy thinking about it either. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for expecting my ex to treat all his kids the same? My ex-husband Paul and I have 3 kids together. Since splitting, we have both found new partners and he has had another child, Ollie, with his new partner, Becky. My children spend every other weekend at their dad's. My daughter is about to turn 13 shortly, and it falls on Paul's weekend. Ollie and my daughter have an 11-year age gap, and Ollie was born the day after my daughter's birthday. We hoped that as the 2 children were born on different days, that there would be no problems. The whole family made running jokes through Becky's pregnancy about her crossing her legs tightly for my daughter's birthday, as her due date was so close. Paul and Becky have decided to have a birthday party for Ollie on my daughter's birthday, and also celebrate hers on the same day. My daughter was very unhappy that she will turn 13 and has to go to a toddler's party, and asked to stay home that weekend and have a sleepover with their friends instead. I have contacted Paul to see if this is okay, and he had a go at me for messing with the plans. Am I the a-hole for expecting him to accept his 13-year-old daughter wants her birthday to be about her? Ollie is so young he doesn't know the date, so surely his party can be any other day? Thanks for reading. Not the a-hole. How can you possibly think she wants to share a birthday with a toddler at the brink of her teens? Her birthday's for her, so I don't blame her or you. One birthday celebrated on Saturday and one celebrated on Sunday. Easy peasy. Not the a-hole. Especially if she wants a sleepover as opposed to a kid's party. She could have had a cake and sleepover party with her friends, and family could wish her happy birthday the next day at Ollie's party. Not the a-hole. For X, it's convenient. Ollie probably won't remember. But your 13-year-old will. X made these plans without considering 13-year-old feelings about it. She wants to sleep over. How does that ruin his plans? If 13-year-old doesn't want to go, she shouldn't have to. It's her birthday, not X's. It does not inconvenience him in any way. You're the one who will be watching over the sleepover. If X wanted to be a part of the celebrations, he should have asked 13-year-old what she wanted. I highly doubt that the ex planned any of this. I bet the stepmom planned a birthday party for her child on her stepdaughter's birthday. She can't see her obvious favoritism, so she believes having a cake and presents for the 13-year-old on the same day is equal acknowledgement. She wants a sleepover. How does that ruin his plans? He's not worried about his plans being ruined. He's worried if his family and friends will judge him for celebrating his 2-year-old's birthday on the older child's birthday. If she's there and gets a token cake and presents, it's all good. If she chooses to stay with mom, then everyone knows she's unhappy with the favoritism. Isn't it Jane's birthday? Where is she? That above is what he wants to avoid. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter that if she and her husband can't afford IVF, then they can't afford a child? This might seem harsh line, but to provide some context, my daughter and her husband have been dealing with infertility for years. They've tried a number of options and IVF is their most recent one. The first round was paid for by me, but it didn't work. Second round was paid for by her dad. That too did not work. It got obviously emotionally and mentally exhausting having to get a negative result after another, so I suggested they take a break and they did. Months later, they visited me and said they were ready to try again. I said that was great and wished them luck. But turned out my daughter was expecting me to cover this round. I was taken aback. I mean, yes, I do have money like my son-in-law pointed out, but it's not about me and what I have. It's about them and what they have as future parents. My daughter looked confused, so I explained that to me, it seemed they're not ready. Because if they can't afford a round of IVF, then they can't afford a child. My daughter got offended, and her husband told me all I had to do was pay for it and let them worry about the rest. I declined to pay, which caused an argument between us. My daughter said that I was being cruel to speak to her and her husband like that. I said I think they're not ready and I'm just being honest. My son-in-law took over the talking and told me that I was just hiding behind the honest bullcrap, because that line was the most heartless thing he and my daughter had ever heard. I apologized that they misunderstood, but he told me I was being selfish because I had kids, and now I'm robbing them of this experience. I assured him that the last time I checked, I wasn't responsible for bringing grandchildren to this world. I've done my part in raising my children, and their problems are theirs alone, even if it seemed harsh. They left and my daughter was crying. Then her husband emailed me about how disappointed and let down my daughter felt because of what I said. I wanted to call her, but I'm waiting for her to calm down a bit and I can apologize. I'm unsure, so am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Your son-in-law told you he knows you have the money? Wow, I think you've been generous enough. Not the a-hole. I have to wonder, how come he doesn't have his hand out to his parents? The audacity of these two coming around like Opie has $15,000 burning a hole in her pocket every time they ask for it. Not the a-hole. My sister went through round after round of IVF and just about everything else the doctors had to offer, and successfully. When I was about to embark on fertility treatment, she gave me wise advice. Before you start, decide at what point you will stop. Because fertility clinics will always dangle before you another thing to try or another round of IVF again and again, ad infinitum. It's up to the couple to be realistic about what they can afford financially and emotionally. It seems that this couple has hit their limit, sad though it may be. This is great perspective. I've never thought about it this way before, but it makes perfect sense, especially with how much many clinics seem to push additional services these days. Especially unfortunate considering how extremely emotional and vulnerable people will be when it isn't successful. Not stay home. Wow, the entitlement is strong with these two. Sounds like you're correct. They're neither financially ready nor are they mature enough. Sorry and good luck. My parents used IVF to conceive me. My parents made sacrifices to save up for it, budgeted and picked up shifts, etc. It was rough at a time, I'm sure, to come up with that money, but they did. And that discipline and sacrifice is exactly why they have always been amazing parents. Being a parent isn't easy, and I think Opie's son-in-law and daughter lack the emotional maturity a good parent should have when they can't grasp how absurd these demands are. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend to shut the heck up in front of my whole family because of the comment he made about my sister's pregnancy? My sister, female 36, and her husband suffered from infertility for a long time. And yesterday we found that she's expecting, which was amazing. We were all happy for her because we know how much this meant to her and her husband, as they've been through so much heartbreak and disappointment in the past. She decided to gather the family and make the announcement at my parents' house. My boyfriend and I were invited too. We didn't know about it right away till post-dinner, when my sister got up from her seat, held her husband's hand and made the announcement. We, the women, all got up to congratulate her. Once we sat down, my boyfriend seemed puzzled. He tried to talk to my sister for a bit, then asked her to tell him how old she was again. My sister hesitantly said 36. He made a face and said, "Wow, didn't know women at this age can still be functional when it comes to breeding." Sudden silence took over. My sister looked down, and then her husband lashed out at my boyfriend asking what the heck his problem was. My boyfriend tried to mumble something, but that's when I loudly told him, "Shut the hell up." He looked at me in shock, and my family stared at him. He seemed very offended and mad. He quickly got up, took his keys, and rushed out after saying, "Excuse me," which my mom replied, "Excuse you?" I apologized to my sister, but she started crying. So I was mad. I went home and had a fight with my boyfriend. He yelled about how I belittled him and insulted him in front of my family by telling him to shut the hell up. I told him what he did was not okay, and it ruined my sister's long-awaited announcement. He said he was giving facts, not personal opinions. I told him I did the same then. He got more agitated and said I owe him a huge apology after I insulted him publicly. I replied that he should have held his tongue. Facts or not. He went outside and then started giving me silence till I apologized for what I said. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. What facts does he think he was just saying? The fact that he's completely ignorant about women and fertility? He should be embarrassed. A friend's grandpa used to say, if you don't want to be embarrassed, don't do embarrassing things. Words to live by. Not the a-hole. Really think about if you want a guy that calls 36-year-old women non-functional and refers to pregnancy as breeding. That's objectifying as heck. What an a-hole. And before people think I'm talking about it being harder for women to get pregnant as they get older, I'm referring to his phrasing and the fact he thought that was something that was okay to say. I mean, he's also wrong in general. Getting pregnant at 36 is not really much more dangerous or difficult than someone 5 or even 10 years younger. After 40 is when some risks increase more dramatically, but they are also manageable for the most part with regular medical care. Not the a-hole because his opinion was awful, wrong, and frankly not asked for and unnecessary. Not the a-hole. He said something really inappropriate. You told him, appropriately, to stop talking, but let's look further into why he's upset. He claims he is upset that you disrespected him in front of others, and he now feels that his reputation is damaged, belittled, insulted, damaged pride, instead of supporting him as a couple. He doesn't even mention what he said, and does not include consideration for how you felt. You felt belittled, insulted, and highly embarrassed that the person you chose to spend your life with and to build a future with would say something so inappropriate in front of your family, about your family member at a moment of good news, that your pride and reputation was damaged by his behavior and your choice in partner. You can get up and leave, which he did, but you don't get that choice because it is family. You can do it in a moment, but you have to face them again because they're family. He uses the defense as giving facts. He literally used "I thought," which is an expression of personal thought process. Ask him if he knows what a fact is, what an opinion is, and how to express them with words. If he is able to, then ask him to apply his logic to his behavior and word choice. And yes, opinions can be based on facts, and facts are just statements that can be proven true or false. So there can be false facts. And he likely just assumed something was a fact to form his opinion, so it was an opinion based on false facts. He still demands an apology for disrespecting him in public? Tell him you do not owe him a damn thing. You did him a favor. 2 favors, actually. You stopped him from making another inappropriate statement/claim which improves his chances of forgiveness. And you made it appear that you were addressing the issue privately. So they are more willing to forgive him for his mistake, with the assumption that he now knows what he did was wrong. No, he does not deserve an apology. He needs to thank you profusely and to apologize to each family member. And not one of those "I'm sorry." No. He needs to look each in the eye, say "I'm sorry," and explain how he understands what he said was wrong, how bad his decision-making was, in detail, and how you helped him understand this. Then he needs to thank you for making him grow into a better version of himself. I know this is a lot, and it's only recommendations, but if you take my advice/breakdown and he refuses, seriously consider dropping him. If he's like this now, either he will never grow up or he will take about 30 years longer for him to become a better person than a normal person does. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for taking my mom's side when she called my wife a gold digger? I know the title sounds horrible and I feel weird because this is the first time I've ever sided with my mom over my wife. So my parents, divorced, are loaded. People sometimes think this means that I'm rich, but my dad hasn't given me anything since I was 21. And my mom stopped gradually but has not given me the same help she has given my sister. A home, cars, a trust. My mom doesn't know I know about this. I'm not saying they owe me anything, just establishing that I'm middle class. We got together as a family recently. This is very rare because my wife and my mom did not like each other. Someone brought up gold diggers, nothing in relation to my wife. My wife made a comment about how it must have been hard for me to date because women probably wanted my money. My mom responded, "What money?" My wife was like, "Well, there was a certain lifestyle." And my mom got an attitude and was like, "What money? Do you mean my money?" At this point, my wife got annoyed and tried to drop it. But my mom told my wife that she needs to pick her words carefully because that sounded kind of like a gold digger. My wife looked at me to defend her, and I normally do, but honestly, I get what my mom was saying. Also, she said it sounds like, which I feel is different from directly calling her a gold digger. My wife asked me if I was going to say anything, and I said to let the conversation go and that money was never my money. My mom proceeded to get pissy about how she feels my wife thinks we are getting that money to will, and that we need to have no expectations because she has put a lot of thought into it. At this point, I told my mom to drop it as well. I thought the rest of the day went fine, but when we got home, my wife was upset with me and said I should have defended her. She feels it was worse because the kids were there and I set a bad precedent. I'm torn, but just in regards to the money, I get what my mom was saying. Now for the comments. You're the a-hole. Your wife was empathizing with you and you demonstrated exactly the mindset she was being critical of. And Opie inadvertently told his wife she sounds like a gold digger for empathizing with him. And that's okay because they didn't say/think she is one directly. My significant other's parents were like this. Just poured money and opportunities on his sister but kicked him out at 17 and shipped him off into the military. Didn't even bother to teach him basic skills. If I stood up for him and he didn't have my back, I would have gone nuclear. You're the a-hole, OP. A big a-hole. Give your wife a hug for me and tell her I'm sorry she got such awful in-laws. You're the a-hole. Both you and your mother. Your wife was talking about your family having the appearance of wealth. That must have attracted some sleazy women who are only interested in that. She obviously wasn't referring to her own interest in your mother's death or inheritance or whatever your dark minds went to. The fact that you both jumped to conclusions reminds me that wealth does not bring class. You're the a-hole. Your wife was just making an observation. She never said that she dated you because of the money. I don't see why your mom immediately jumped in with attitude about her money. And then your wife tried to drop it and your mom wouldn't let it go. So yeah, I think you should have defended her. Unless you actually do think she married you for your money, which you say you don't have. I don't. But the language about the money has been a point of contention for years. And two people refused to speak to my wife because she continuously used the words family money. I'd say the phrase family money is 40% of the reason my mother doesn't really speak to me these days. And I've talked to my wife about how she needs to not think about it as my money because it will never be mine again. But like, you were raised in a wealthy family. For a good chunk of your life, it was family money. You had opportunities and an upbringing that a lot of kids only dream of. Even if you were not benefiting from these things now, how is your wife supposed to refer to this wealth you experienced? Is your mom only angry that she's not being credited as owning the money? Is your wife making presumptuous statements that you will one day inherit the money? I don't get it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister's boyfriend she actually couldn't draw? Hey guys, I'm 16 female and my sister Amy is 18 female. My sister and I are really close. We are rather similar too. Example, having the same interests. But what made me different from her was that I love art, and I'm an artist. Drawing is what I'm best at, and I spend several hours a day drawing. Amy never cared for art, and she isn't good at it. For background, 4 months ago, Amy was forced by her form teacher to join an art festival. Since she couldn't draw, she begged me to draw something for her. I accepted under the condition that she wouldn't flaunt this art outside of the festival as hers. I spent over 80 hours drawing my best work, and Amy was overjoyed. She won gold in the festival and I was really happy. Now, about 2 months ago, Amy found a boyfriend, long distance. He loves art, so she told him she was an artist. He actually never asked for a picture of her drawings until now, because he asked for a picture a few days ago. Amy, without asking for my permission, showed the art I made for her festival. He was amazed and said she was a professional artist. The funny thing is, Amy actually never told me any of these things. Her birthday was yesterday and her boyfriend posted something really sweet on Instagram for her. He made a slideshow of her pictures, and guess what? One of the pictures was the art from the festival, as well as another of my work. I felt really hurt and confused. I'll admit that I was jealous. The post was full of comments amazed by her artistic talent. And, well, I just felt betrayed. This is where I might be the a-hole. In a fit of disbelief, I messaged her boyfriend and said that the art, they were all my works. I had pictures of me drawing those, and I showed him. He was shocked and mad at Amy for lying to him. He ended up telling her he needed time to reconsider their relationship, as he thinks trust is the most important factor. She found out what I did and went berserk. She yelled at me for destroying her relationship and making her seem like a liar. She said because of my jealousy, I made her lose her boyfriend. She went to stay at a friend's house, and I feel really freaking guilty. Amy was so happy with her boyfriend that I could have kept my anger in check. However, my mom told me it wasn't my fault and that Amy messed up her own relationship. Am I the a-hole? So your sister is a liar and she's angry at you for outing her as a liar? Definitely not the a-hole. I hope you guys patch things up. But if you play silly games, you win silly prizes. I think anyone would be rightfully upset about their siblings stealing their art and attempting to pass it off as their own. Mad at Amy for lying to him. He ended up telling her he needed time to reconsider their relationship, as he thinks trust is the most important factor. I think that's a wise choice on his part. That's the thing with liars. You cannot ever know if anything they say is true. I would think, well, if they're comfortable lying, claiming someone else's art is theirs, what else will they lie about? You're not the a-hole and didn't make your sister seem like a liar. She is a liar. Yeah, just follow up with, how did I make you seem like a liar? Because her only answer is, because you exposed my lie, or some version of the same.